eliminated from certain people's teams when it comes to their team building choices. It's just not as optimal, but it's quite nice to see it still making an appearance here because it's got such a diverse move pool. If Wolfe has got those 4 moves that will be really critical to building a really solid team, then Dusclops still has a place.
Yeah, Dusclops can do fine as long as it doesn't run into Pokemon with Poltergeist. That's probably one of the biggest issues for it right now is the addition of Poltergeist, just taking that Eviolite and causing chaos. So we're going to dive right on into the game, start seeing how this brand new matchup between 2 fantastic players really does play out. And I think this is going to be a good set no matter which way it goes.
Exactly, top tier Pokemon play is guaranteed in this set, with Wolfe leading out with that Dusclops and Tyranitar, and James going for the Dragapult and Rotom. So 2 different speed styles going on here. James going for the notoriously fast Dragapult, whereas Wolfe has gone for Dusclops that likes to stay slow and steady and maybe even set up that Trick Room.
Yep, setting up Trick Room really could be essential here, especially when you're looking down something like a Dragapult. Dragapult known for just being so fast, being able to apply so much pressure, and I do kind of like the combination of Dusclops along with the Tyranitar as well. I mean, Tyranitar probably feeling surprisingly safe against the Rotom, has control of the weather, obviously, gets a nice little boost there, and, you know, if he can then get control of speed on top of that, things could get really kind of problematic in dealing with it. We've seen a Tyranitar already today being able to take control through Dragon Dancing. I don't think that's going to be exactly how Wolfe wants to play this one, but I think James, we see him diving into that Pokemon Select screen, definitely not completely content on where the board position is for him right now.
Yeah, switches things up and brings that Amoonguss straight onto the field. Again, a Pokemon that really likes to utilize Trick Room. It's so slow, and it can start throwing around things like Spore or some redirection to protect his partner Pokemon. And it sort of looks like here, James is kind of revealing that he probably is going to accept the Trick Room's going up here. We don't see the Dynamax on that Dragapult either to maybe go for a Max Phantasm into that Dusclops and try and stop it going for Trick Room. He's kind of content to let it get set up while Tyranitar goes for the Dynamax here. Dragapult going for the Phantom Force though. Very clever here, going to disappear while the speed is still speedy on his side, and when Trick Room's up will come in last at the end of the game. It also actually manages to allow one of the max moves from Tyranitar to be null and void going into the Abyss.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic play from James. He's accepted the Trick Room comes up. He's bought in Amoonguss, which is absolutely key because everyone knows Amoonguss is slow. There's not going to be any shenanigans here trying to make it surprisingly quick, I don't think. So being able to bring that in and just apply pressure with the Spore in the Trick Room is great. On top of that, what he's managed to do is basically keep his Dragapult safe for 2 turns, and that's going to be 2 of the 3 Dynamax turns we're getting out of this Tyranitar. So this Dragapult in a really good position right now. There's some really cool interactions with moves like Phantom Force and Bounce when you change speeds around, and James has capitalized on that perfectly. So I think even though Wolfe got exactly what he wanted in setting up the Trick Room with absolutely nothing to stop him, James is still in a really good position to wear through some of those Trick Room turns, and most importantly, some of those Dynamax turns as well.
Exactly. Well, Amoonguss here actually going for the Protect, knowing that it's probably going to be the target here. There's no point targeting down that Dragapult while it's hiding in Phantom Force. Tyranitar going for that Max Knuckle, though, is going to, of course, go through the Protect, do very minimal damage, but it's a great opportunity for Wolfe to capitalize on here, where he knows he can target down into that Amoonguss and raise the attack stat of that Tyranitar as well, so it's going to be more offensive going into that next turn. Amoonguss protecting, though, does sort of give itself a little bit of trouble going into that next turn, knowing that Dusclops does have that taunt, so that's going to be able to shut down any redirection or any spores that Amoonguss wants to go for.
And I think that's something cool about the way this tournament's been played, where trainers have access to know about their opponent's team, and if you know the taunt's coming, you can just play your Amoonguss so safe. I mean, yeah, it does help. It doesn't take that much damage from the Max Knuckle, and I really liked what Wolfe did there, saying, well, I'm not going to be able to hit your Dragapult. That's fine. I'll at least boost my stats, so when I can hit it, I can probably just guarantee a knockout. And this is going to be the last turn of Wolfe's Dynamax. He really needs to get, I think, at least a knockout here to make it worthwhile. And that's going to be, very possible on something like the Dragapult if it decides to stay in. It's still going to be kind of an ask on the Amoonguss. I think Amoonguss, people still don't realize how bulky it can be, even after many years of it turning up in top-level play.
Yeah, and that attack boost that the Tyranitar got from the Max Knuckle is now going to be removed thanks to the Intimidate of the Arcanine. So a wise switch in there from James. Dusclops going for the taunt, of course, outspeeding in this Trick Room environment. So that poor Amoonguss not going to be able to go for the Spore that it locked into there Tyranitar going for that max Rockfall though. Has it potentially caught that Arcanine on the switch? And yes, it has. This is going to be able to pick up the solid one-hit KO against that Arcanine. Obviously, stands up, doesn't get the secondary effect here, but James has now already lost one of his Pokemon. It does mean he gets a free switch into either the Rotom or the Dragapult, but, you know, he doesn't have that Arcanine now for future Intimidates.
Well, I think that's really smart, actually, by Wolfe to read into that and say, well, I just got the boost from Max Knuckle. I know you have Arcanine on your team, and you're going to bring that in to try and kind of settle that score, bring it back to neutral, and getting the Rockfall knockout there, really, really good. That will be the last turn of Dynamax, so not kind of the most valuable Dynamax. Yes, there was a knockout, there was a couple of key boosts, but some of the big damaging threats over on James's side weren't taken out. I think Arcanine playing a more supportive role. It wasn't a knockout on something like Dragapult or Rotom, and, you know, Amoonguss is taunted. That could be problematic. I think maybe James there just throwing the Spore thinking he wasn't going to get taunted again. But don't forget, James still has access to his Dynamax. You know, he's making it through these turns without having to use that. And that's going to be really important, is if he can pick the right Pokemon to Dynamax, he could swing momentum in his favor, even being down a Pokemon very, very quickly.
Well, the Dusclops here are going to help out Tyranitar one more time, going for that Bulldoze. Obviously, it won't be affecting the Rotom, but the critical thing here is it is connecting onto that Tyranitar for super effective damage that will then proc the weakness policy. So Tyranitar finding a way to still be able to boost up its attack stat despite not having access to those max moves that would boost it up previously. Amoonguss going for the Pollen Puff though, so going into that Tyranitar as well. Going to deal a little bit more chip damage. Tyranitar here going for the Lash Out, going to target down into that Amoonguss. This is such an interesting move because it deals more damage if you've had a stat reduced in that turn, which is exactly what Bulldoze did there by lowering the speed. Hydro Pump though coming out though from the Rotom, not enough to pick up the KO though. Tyranitar is able to hang on.
Yeah, and I think that turn actually puts Wolfe in a really, really good position. The combination of Bulldoze, Weakness Policy, Lash Out is so much to try and handle. You know, not many Pokemon are going to be able to withstand that kind of onslaught early on. So James is down to his last two Pokemon already. Yes, Wolfe does have just, you know, the two Pokemon very low on health, but he's still in a good position, and that boost to Weakness Policy, you know, says, hey, you've got to deal with this Tyranitar, and the Dusclops can try and cause some problems there. That said, James still holds on to the Dynamax, and if he can get through the last couple turns here of this Trick Room, you know, it's been a long time. It's been there since turn 1 of the game. James may be able to just kind of clutch this out, depending on what Wolfe's got in the back. I think that's going to be really key to this matchup. If James can get rid of these two, clear the field, play it as a 2v2 with access to the Dynamax, he's just going to be in a really, really solid position. So this turn, I think, probably one of the most important that we've seen throughout the game. You know, a change to Rillaboom here. This could get really interesting, especially with that Rotom being relied on so heavily.
Yeah, exactly. Getting your Rillaboom onto the field here to apply pressure to that Rotom is going to be critical once this turn is over. I wouldn't be surprised to see James going defensively to stall out the last of his Trick Room turns, and that's exactly what he's going for here, just going for the double protect. You know, there's no more Dynamax on Wolfe's side, so he doesn't have to worry about those protects being broken. Lash Out targeting down into the Dragapult as the Sandstorm subsides as well, so Tyranitar not going to be getting that special defense boost anymore. Gets a little cheeky HP recovery from this grassy terrain, but I think Wolfe being able to bring in that Rillaboom as the Trick Room ends as well, applying a lot of pressure with Grassy Glide, having that priority is going to be really key for him.
Yeah, I think the Rillaboom is fantastic to see here. And the Rotom just protected as well. So the Rotom and the Dragapult together saying, okay, we need Trick Room to be over, then we can start to play our own game. That's fine. But Rillaboom really makes that difficult for the Rotom. The addition of Grassy Glide, you know, the fact that there's no easy way for James to start changing around the terrain is key here. I mean, obviously, he could Dynamax the Rotom and try and change the terrain that way. But to do that, he'd still have to take the Grassy Glide in the first place. So it's going to be tough for Rotom. I do see it's able to do it. I think it's a really cool Pokemon when it Dynamaxes, and it's got a lot of options. But that selection really, really important there.
Yeah, I think James keeping his Dynamax so late can be critical for him. It's such a turning point in the game, but he still hasn't gone for it here. Grassy Glide comes out, picks up the one-hit KO against that Rotom. Just so much damage, and it leaves James with just his Dragapult left on the field here. Going for the Dragon Darts, going to connect into the Rillaboom, do a decent chunk of damage there. Actually, obviously, redirecting away there. So Rillaboom sitting a little bit vulnerable, but not as vulnerable as this Dragapult. There's just too much offensive pressure coming out into James's side, and the damage coming out from that Rillaboom is definitely scary.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much being asked of the Dragapult right now. I mean, James has just held on to that Dynamax for, you know, all game. It's just there. It's something he's not looked at, and the problem is 4v1 might be a little much for your Dragapult. The problem is if he Dynamaxes, he doesn't get access to kind of the spread of 2 Dreepy Dragon Darts, so he needs to keep a hold of that kind of wisely and try and find that endgame position. But Wolfe just played kind of so smartly, did really well in his Trick Room, and even though his early Dynamax was a little underwhelming, it's still better than not Dynamaxing at all.
Yeah, exactly. Not using a Dynamax is something we really don't see too often at the moment, and it seems to have gone against James here. I know the late game Dynamax can be so critical sometimes, and you want to save it so that you can maybe play defensively around your opponents and then sweep through with your own endgame, but unfortunately it was just a little bit too late there. So much damage coming out from that Rillaboom though into the Dragapult, maybe indicating something like a Choice Band on that Rillaboom there, just dealing out so much damage. Will be KO'd though due to the Dragon Darts, but with Incineroar coming in again, a Pokemon that can apply a lot of pressure to Dragapult with Dark-type moves, it looks like James is kind of going to be out of this Game 1 and might have to start thinking towards Game 2 and how he might adjust.
Yeah, I mean, Dragapult, I think, is great, and it's been kind of a staple of this format this year. A lot of teams finding new ways to use it, but I argue its limitation is being against 2 Dark types, not something it's too strong at being able to deal with, especially at such low health. So yeah, even if he lands a Dragon Darts on Tyranitar, Incineroar's going to be able to follow up with any Dark-type move and just kind of tidy up this game. It's been tough for James. You know, he's needed to keep a hold of Dragon Darts. We see him finally hovering the Dynamax button there, but it's probably just going to be a little bit too late for Dragapult to be able to fire back.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too late, but also you can still learn in this situation. Maybe try and get some calculations about how much damage a max move would do into one of these opponents going into that next game. It could be information that would fit into his game plan, where if he comes up in this kind of situation again, he can apply a lot of pressure with one of these max moves. And he has indeed gone for the Dynamax here with the Dragapult. You know, Dragapult isn't giving up yet on its trainer. It wants to try and fight this out and see if there's a way back for James in this situation. But facing down against 2 Dark types, it's definitely going to be a challenge. Tyranitar going straight for the Protect though. Going to leave things up to Incineroar to apply the offensive pressure in this game, but not before Dragapult goes for that max Whirlwind. Is going to connect into the Incineroar and actually manages to pick up the KO there. So much damage with the critical hit coming out from the Dragapult. Dragapult's really fighting back here, Adam.
Is Dragapult going to be able to do it? I mean, Dragapult at one point was 4 versus 1. Obviously, it's losing a little bit of health every single turn from the Life Orb, and we're getting damage from sand, and then we're getting recovery from the grassy terrain. But the problem is, you know, now it's dealt with the Rillaboom and the Incineroars come in. We're now just down to Tyranitar and Dusclops. The Tyranitar's just protected too, so it can't do that this turn, and Dusclops is really going to struggle to fire back in this match. I mean, it's going to be able to start wearing it down, but this could be kind of the full-on Dragapult sweep at the end. I thought he'd been holding on to the Dynamax for a little bit too long, but we'll see if he's able to do it just by throwing around all of these drops. This is going to be a real close finish, I think.
Yeah, it certainly is. Going for the max Wormwood, going into the Dusclops there, which means that the Tyranitar is going to take another attack drop here. I believe it's now at -2 attack. Goes for the Lash Out. Of course, Lash Out. Oh, it's just going to be so strong, and we'll be able to pick up the KO there. I mean, maybe if James had gone into the Tyranitar in that situation, somehow maybe picked up another KO. Dusclops isn't known for being the most offensive of Pokemon. You know, the kind of offensive moves we often see enough to claim the victory there. So I wonder if in Game 2 there will be some changes. So let's jump straight into that game and see if the Pokemon trainers are going to be able to use their max moves to even more potential.
Yeah, I imagine we've got to see some kind of change, particularly out of James, but right off the bat, there's going to be a complete change from Wolfe. Cinderace and Milotic, Dragapult and Amoonguss. Not the change that we were talking about, but, you know, Cinderace, Milotic can be really problematic as well.
Yeah, some changes for sure here. James bringing the Amoonguss and Dragapult. Amoonguss on the field ready in case Wolfe had decided to maybe go for some Trick Room strategies again, but in this current situation, I really don't think that would be on Wolfe's mind. Amoonguss maybe going to be playing more of a redirection supportive role for that Dragapult.
Yeah, it's got a lot of work to do to get this Dragapult into a real winning position, I think. And, you know, without the threat of the taunt from Dusclops in a Trick Room either, that does mean he's got a little more breathing room than previously. But once again, it's turn 1, and Wolfe's going to start Dynamaxing. So we've got a different Dynamax candidate. Obviously, the Tyranitar's not on the field. I think unsurprising to, you know, no one, it's Cinderace this time. And Cinderace can be a real big problem for something like this Amoonguss.
Yeah, refreshingly, it is not the Gigantamax Cinderace on the field. So that's a slight change of pace here, as the Milotic does go for that helping hand, though. So going to boost out some of the offensive moves that Cinderace can go for. It's something like a Max Airstream here into the Amoonguss, which I believe it may well be here. You know, Libero ability going to change it into that flying type as well for the same type attack bonus. It's going to deal out so much damage. Amoonguss, however, is preparing itself. It's going to be eating that Cobra Berry. Oh, it just managed to survive on 5 HP. That berry coming in so strong for the Amoonguss there. Really, really great that it had access to that. Otherwise, that would have been a clean KO. Cinderace revealing to have the Life Orb there, taking a little bit of recoil. And for its troubles, you know, you've tried so hard to remove Amoonguss from the field, and Amoonguss is just going to go for a Spore right back into the Cinderace. Once again, stopping Wolfe from really utilizing his max move turns.
Yeah, he's got to do something, and maybe the Cinderace will only sleep for a turn. It's really kind of key there to see what he can do facing down something as problematic as being asleep. That's absolutely huge, and you see why Wolfe goes with the helping hand into the Max Airstream. I think that's absolutely key, but it's just not enough. That Cobra Berry, probably one of the most common items on Amoonguss. I don't see many other things that it needs to take, and that's absolutely huge. It's able to take that. It does get a little bit of health back with Regenerator, so we'll see Amoonguss a little bit later on as well.
Yeah, a critical hit coming out here from the Dragapult into the Cinderace with Dragon Darts. Does deal a decent amount to that Amoonguss as well. Amoonguss went for the Skull, trying to get a burn on that Dragapult, but to no avail. And I think James switching in the Rotom here is actually really good. It means that Rotom can apply a lot of sort of electric type pressure to that Milotic, try and remove it from the field for getting up to any kind of shenanigans. But it could also be an opportunity to capitalize on the sleeping Cinderace. Do you maybe go for Nasty Plot?
So I like what James has done here, actually. He knows that, obviously, without attacking, you can't activate the Libero ability and change your type. So the Cinderace is still asleep, and it's still a flying type from that Max Airstream turn number 1. Could become a bit of a problem. I do like this Icy Wind, though, from Milotic. I think that's going to be really key in helping to deal with this Dragapult if Wolfe isn't playing the Trick Room variety.
Yeah, really key observation there from James. Like you said, knowing that Cinderace is still that flying type, going to be weak to the electric type attacks, but thanks to the extra HP from being in that Dynamax state, it was able to hang on. So whether or not it can wake up is still to be revealed. But I like the synergy that Wolfe's got there. He was trying to boost his speed using Cinderace with Max Airstream, but then while it's taking a nap, Milotic can say, hey, I can still help with the speed here. I can go for those Icy Winds and lower the speed of my opponent. So a few speed games being played here on Wolfe's side of the field.
Yeah, those Icy Winds are going to hurt something like the Dragapult too. I mean, they'll do a little bit to Amoonguss, but it's pretty bulky and can shrug those off rather well. But overall, you know, I think Icy Wind's going to be pretty helpful here, especially when you don't get the value out of your Dynamax turns to maybe land 2 or 3 Max Airstreams. Being able to, you know, comfortably kind of sort the speed out in this game. Certainly interesting. Cinderace, though, finally waking up, not in its Dynamax form anymore, but just changing its type around a little bit here.
Yeah, and James switching in the Amoonguss here, I think to kind of sack it so that you can bring something back in and maybe reset the speed on that Dragapult as well. Cinderace, although it has woken up, is going to shoot right back into its Pokeball due to the recoil of Life Orb, as Rotom is going to have to take a Skull from that Milotic. It is now going to go for the Nasty Plot, though, going to be able to capitalize on this opportunity and boost up its special attack. So Rotom now looking extremely threatening going forward. James still having access to his Dynamax as well. This could be the perfect opportunity to Dynamax up your Rotom and start applying a lot of offensive pressure, but you have to worry about that Rillaboom that Wolfe's just brought in. We saw how strong Grassy Glide was on that last game. It's going to be able to pick up a KO here.
Yeah, here's kind of the perfect execution of the Fire, Water, Grass core, right? You've got the Rotom, which is something that usually is pretty good at, you know, playing around it, saying, you know, I know about something like a Milotic, and I can deal with that through my electric typing. But that Rillaboom hitting the field certainly makes this Rotom's life a whole lot harder. James not holding it for quite as late this time. Dynamax starting right now with the Dragapult, and I think this is a lot better for it. It's not facing down dark types. You know there can only be maybe one in either the Incineroar or the Tyranitar, and it's not on the field right now. So you're in a really good position. You're not worrying about something like the Bulldoze Weakness Policy Lash Out turn again either. So this could be a big turn for this Dragapult.
Yeah, and going for the Protect on the Rotom while Dragapult is in its Dynamax form, it allows Dragapult the opportunity to maybe start manipulating some of the statistics on Wolf's side of the field, whether it be speed through Max Airstream, which is what he's going for here, into that Rillaboom, or always trying to lower the attack of that Rillaboom as well with something like a Max Wormwind. But the worry with that is then proccing the competitive on that Milotic. Dragapult, though, did get burned by that Milotic. Second time lucky there for Milotic going for that Scald Burn. And that you can really see the damage reduction that happens. Rillaboom being able to survive here, going to get a little bit of HP regain from that grassy terrain. So although Dragapult's trying its best, Rotom is still not safe from this Rillaboom in this turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really key here is that Milotic getting the burn. Without that, the Rillaboom gets knocked out, and then this Rotom's completely safe. James doesn't have to make this play, and I think the onus here is on Wolf to make sure he keeps in a position where he can have Rillaboom versus Rotom, right? That's the end game he wants. That's the end game he needs. And, it looks like he's called it. We saw from our side James making the switch on the Rotom, and it looks like Wolf's immediately said, you know what? I think that's come in. I just need to be safe from this Dragapult for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Rotom here, gonna retreat back into his Pokeball. So a few switches coming out from both of these trainers, and both actually opting for their Fire types and Intimidate users.
Oh no.
Unfortunately, yeah, Milotic's competitive is going to be activated by that Intimidate, and I think the critical thing that James is trying to do there is get the Intimidate onto that Rillaboom. But with Incineroar switching in, Rillaboom is still safe in the back now to threaten that Rotom later on in the game. Max Airstream going to target down into that Incineroar. So yes, the speed is being boosted up on James's side, but he is not getting the critical KOs he needs in order to protect his partner Pokemon to close out this game. Milotic going for the Scald here, actually going straight into that Arcanine slot. Does so much damage, picks up a one-hit KO thanks to that competitive boost. Everything is going wrong for James in this turn, and everything is going well for Wolf.
Yeah, I think the end game's just kind of made itself very, very clear for Wolf there. He's got Incineroar and Milotic on the field against this Dragapult. In Dragapult's last turn of Dynamax, he's really going to be stretching to get a knockout on either of these Pokemon. His Rotom's then going to have to come in. He doesn't have a choice about it. And I think Wolf got so much out of that turn. He knew that Rotom was going to leave. That was fine. But then he, kind of gets the confirmation that the Arcanine is the last Pokemon for James. The Arcanine activates competitive, and to really rub it in, he just lands one of those really nice Scalds on the switch in. And now with these two Pokemon remaining for James, the Dragapult's the only one that Wolf really needs to deal with this turn. He has an answer cooked in to the Rotom as soon as the Rillaboom needs to show up, right? And the only thing he needs to be a little bit conscious of is making sure he has grassy terrain so he can grassy glide with priority when that end game comes.
Yeah, exactly. That could be a problem for the Rillaboom if the grassy terrain has gone when it re-emerges onto the field, or should I say disappears after it's emerged and can't switch out to come back in. Rotom here going to be boosted up by the Max Airstream, so once again going to be nice and speedy as Milotic now activates its Berry and regains a little bit of HP here. Going for another Icy Wind, as we know this is going to threaten that Dragapult. It's going to start negating some of the speed boosts that the Max Airstreams have got. You can see how much it does thanks to the competitive boost that it got previously. So Dragapult really looking to be in a dangerous situation here once the Dynamax turns it over. I think, like you said as well, Adam, the unfortunate thing for James here is he just doesn't have the offensive pressure to pick up KOs against these Pokemon. It's been burnt, it's at really low health as well, and Incineroar can just be so threatening with any
that Scald Burn earlier
going into that slot.
That Scald Burn earlier is just such a big problem, right? It's meaning that he's missed key knockouts in those Dynamax turns, and that means the Rillaboom's safe for whenever it decides to come back out. Grassy terrain is on 2 of 5, so it's not going to be the longest time. You got to be smart about that. But I think the fact that it's going to be really hard for James to knock something out and force that Rillaboom to come in before it wants to really is an issue. Remember, Rotom had a nasty plot boost earlier, but the presence of the Rillaboom forced it out. We do see Dragapult, though, trying to buy a little bit of time by not being on the field to get hit.
Yeah, we saw it with Bounce in some of the previous games today, and now we're seeing it with Fly. Milotic going for the Icy Wind, going to connect onto that Rotom, reduce the speed once again as Rotom goes for another nasty plot here. it just has to hope if you're the Rotom at this stage, you're going to be able to work around that Rillaboom that you know is already in the back. So you might as well try and have your stats as boosted as possible so you can apply a lot of pressure. Maybe try and pick up a KO against that Milotic and remove it from the field as quickly as possible. It's going to be interesting though with Dragapult kind of being on this burn timer of its own, whether it's going to be able to deal enough damage to Wolfe's Pokemon to help Rotom out.
Yep, I mean, the Rotom there not putting any damage down in return. Certainly an issue. I know you need that Nasty Plot boost, and I know a lot of players who run the Nasty Plot Rotom rely on kind of having that boost to hit the numbers they need to. We do see, though, the burn Dragapult is beyond underwhelming with that fly.
Yeah, it certainly is. That was really good of the Milotic to be able to get the burn there for Wolfe. Dragapult will now be KO'd by that final Icy Wind, but as we said, it's already on a little bit of a timer, and I don't think Rotom is going to be able to carry this game through, particularly if it's going to miss its Hydro Pumps here. Incineroar going for the Burning Jealousy, one of these new moves that's come out from the Isle of Armor. Not going to deal too much damage, but I think the main thing here for Wolfe is to be able to keep his Pokemon on the field so that when Grassy Terrain goes away, as it has just done now, it means that when Rillaboom comes back in, it's guaranteed to be set up again. And that's really what both these Pokemon on the front here for Wolfe really needed to do, and they've done it so well. Unfortunately, Rotom's just going to be outmatched.
Yeah, the Rotom, even with a Nasty Plot boost, not able to fight back in that one. And a really good set, even though it was 2-0 to Wolfe. I think both trainers showing off some cool things their teams could do. But overall, I mean, game 2, a Skull Burn onto a Dragapult. You know, the move's not going to do that much damage, but the burn is absolutely essential there, and it makes those Dynamax turns